So background information would be, we were a conventional farming operation, cattle side and farming, I mean conventional through and through. Copious amounts of fertilizer, chemicals on the farming side, and vaccines and foo-foo feeds and all this on the cow side. And so in 1999 I had a series of back surgeries, and it allowed me to finally go to college. And then after college I managed a medical clinic in Lincoln for about 5 years. And I got to see at that point, and hear the people that were coming in from the city, Lincoln's our big city, and talking about, talking very negatively about agriculture. And my father was still alive at that time, and I come home and I was talking to him, and I'm like, yeah, they're just like not talking about anything good about agriculture. He goes, well, I can't really blame him. He's like, we're not really doing anything good anymore. And I'm like, so that makes a little sense. My grandfather was such a great naturalist. My dad kind of fell into that university mindset of everything needed to be a certain way. So instead of grazing cows, we were like hauling feed and putting up feed and doing all this stuff. So at that point, we decided we're going to make it more transparent, more open for people to come and see what we're doing. And in that process, you hear different people talk about different things that you're not, we're too close in our own backyard. We can't see really what we're doing. And I was fortunate enough as a young boy to be with my dad or his good friends, to go all across the United States and see every kind of farming operation. So my perspective was different and very much primed to do something different right from the start. But in '99, we were farming 7,000 acres, doing a lot of wrong things. And when all that changed, we got to downsize a little bit, and we got to really start thinking about putting our priorities in place. And a lot of that was, what are we doing to our families with what we're doing? Do we even know our families? What's the community look like? How do we start building community? And then we got to this whole soil deal. It's like, oh my gosh, our soil is all shot. It's like, what are we doing? Why have we done this? And so since then, we've been cover crops since way before that. We just weren't calling them cover crops. They were cow feed. So, we knew that those places we were building the soil faster, because it was always more productive when we came out of grazing cows and we went into another crop scenario. So it really got us going 10 or 15 years ago, and probably in the last 10 years, full bore on, we have to make a difference, and we have to be the place that people feel good coming to, and I need to be that person that they feel good talking to. So just right over across that creek and across that next paddock fence, on a Sunday morning that's when I got my calling, probably 8 or 10 years ago. My grandfather, who I was with him all the time, this voice came to me and he said, you're going to be the one that has to get everybody riled up. I tell people I wasn't the first to do this. I'm not the best. I was the most vocal, and I come out swinging. And there's a lot of people now that go back to, wow, you talk different than you did years ago. I said, well, I was pissed. We're about out of time. My granddaughters, if we don't get this right, they have no life. We will run out of water. Our soil, great deserts in the world used to be beautiful farm ground. We have to study history. We have to understand that everything's cyclical, and that everything's been done, it's all been done before. So other than, I don't want to go back to farming with horses or doing stuff like that, but everything else with our splash of technology now, it's a no-brainer. It's all been done. We can do it all again. What I always say is the first step in regenerative agriculture is to regenerate the mind. If you can't regenerate the mind, and there's some we won't, but there's a lot of people that have called me every name in the book, talking to me for 5 years on the phone. I'm full of shit and all this stuff. And in 20 minutes of digging in some fields and maybe seeing dung beetles and all this, they leave and they're like, I can do this. Like, you're not doing anything great. I know that. So just, yeah, everyone can do it. And we know we can do it all around the world. Regen practices can be tweaked to work. If it's like we were talking, you know, if it's 8 or 12 inches, or I've got clients in Alabama and Florida that get like, they can get 100 inches if it's a hurricane and stuff like that. So it works every place.
So what about soil health initially intrigued you, and does that same thing intrigue you now?
I'm more excited about soil health. I'm a soil color person. I'm not a soil scientist. I am a philosopher of soil. I'm like the Walt Whitman of soil. So there's a romanticism and a really blue-collar pragmatic approach to what I do. So yes, I have every tool at my disposal. I can do whatever I want. The spade is still my favorite tool and the most important tool on the farm or ranch. And my spade has been all over the country. It's been carried through airports and gun cases. Everybody's like, wow, it's just a spade. But, you know, so I'm more excited, getting back to your original question, I'm more excited now because I've got to see the transformation in my own soil. And like where we're standing now, this has all been bale grazed. And we know, because we have conducted tests, and we have taken every kind of measurement, that in this soil, which is fairly productive but heavy clay, it will not forgive you if you screw it up. But in this soil, where we put some really good alfalfa bales a couple years ago, the end of February, the middle of May, there was already 2 inches of black soil, life, earthworms, everything coming right there. And when we did to see how productivity-wise, it was 400% more productive in that spot in 3 months than it was where we didn't do it, and the soil was still yellowish.
That's fantastic. Do you do like conventional soil tests, or how do you test besides
all
just
Haney tests? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we've been and Liz Haney, I actually work with her now. She's a regen specialist with Indigo, and it's become a really good friend, her and Rick, and they're fabulous people, a lot smarter than I'll ever be on all this. So always surround yourself with people smarter than you, because you're only going to be as smart as the smartest person you talk to.
I love that.
It's like an old timer's wisdom.
I like it. So you kind of touched on how you got into soil health, but can you take us kind of through that journey?
Yeah, so when we started to take away the crutches, when we decided, okay, we're not going to spray, we're not going to fertilize these pastures, we're going to start overseeding with clovers, we're going to do extreme grazing, what we do until June 15th, which we just hammer the crap out of our cool season grasses in order to take the pressure away so the warm season, those seeds that are still in the soil will come back. And so what we've got to see it, that transformation on that side. There's so many different places to go with this. So all soil's on life support, yet all soil, I believe, has everything in it that we need to grow crops, grass or anything. It's just bound up. It's just because of the treatment. We've just treated soil so horribly. But when we switched on the farmland side, we got to see that the soil is very confused. The soil is geared for artificial things going into an artificial environment that's basically on life support. So when we took everything away, and we took it away all at once, and I would not recommend that. I'd recommend more cover crops and kind of, a slow reduction. But, even the weeds were confused. They didn't know how to grow. It's like, is it okay for me to grow? Like, there's not something coming to not kill me, but set me back. So just how you get to see that all unfold, and how nature will tell you, it will tell you really fast when you're doing things the wrong way, and it will tell you gradually when you're doing them the right way. So, because we've abused that soil for so long. Now what we've got to see is, now we haven't used any synthetic fertilizers on any crop ground. We still use some chemicals as needed, and we're trying to get away from all that, trying to get to the point where we're rolling all of our cover crops ahead. Last year was not the year to get cover crops in. On the grass side of things, just working on intensifying our grazing and taking away a lot of those things that are killing the life in the soil. So, the porons we were using on cattle, and we didn't have dung beetles when I was a kid. I can remember the big rollers out in the pasture. So we don't use any porons on our cattle. We don't vaccinate the cows. We don't preg check the cows. The calves will get a shot for pneumonia when they come in. They're weaned on grass. They probably wouldn't need that. So it's our final little crutch, makes everybody happy. So, but nothing but opportunity. I mean, every place you look, it's opportunity. And this is a country that's chucked full of brome on basically reclaimed farm ground. Brome's not ideal by any means, but it sure is a nice ground cover for the transition that we're trying to do. You get cows that are used to it, they do well on it.
That's awesome. So you mentioned a little earlier that you have to regenerate your mind before you can even start on your land. Is that the biggest hurdle that a producer comes up against?
Absolutely. Always. We've never done it this way. What are people going to think? So perception and regenerating the mind are like 50-50. So we've totally ruined all community in every action that we've done, from consolidating schools to banks to all this stuff, to, you guys have heard this, my grandpa said the day the horses left and the tractor came was the day we replaced community with competition. So no longer did we need everyone to do the threshing crew or anything like that. We had our little Ford or little John Deere tractor, and so Frank across the fence, we're eyeing his ground. Then we get into the 70s and the government really pushing for our demise in a lot of that. I mean, people that didn't have our best interests at heart, but it really goes back to the perception of people that they don't even talk to. They've lost all that connection, and they're still so concerned about what's somebody going to think if we go from 6 new tractors to just 2. And I always say, well, you're going to look pretty damn smart. And they'll be like, I don't know. What's Junior going to do? He works ground. Well, Junior's 45. Junior's going to have to maybe go fishing in his spare time or something like that. But the things I've heard, I should just write a book like on all the reasons why you can't do it. They are some doozies. Yeah. I can't no-till here. I can't run my cows that way. I got to market my calves different. I need big calves. Well, what's the cost? What's the cost of production, but what's the cost of what you did to the soil to get it there? None of that's sustainable.
When did it transition from just putting out a good quality steer or good quality alfalfa to we got to get it the biggest, the best, the most yield?
Companies. So when I say that farmers and ranchers suffer from the Stockholm syndrome, they become friends of their captors. It's like the most accurate quote, because I was there. I mean, everyone wanted to sell me something. The bigger I got, the better friends they were, and the better deals you got, and just everything. So when you break that, I wanted all those guys to go out of business that are selling stuff, because every one of those guys wants to be back on a farm or ranch. So I don't want them to be unemployed. I want them to do what they really want to do. And you think about how many farm and ranch kids, we all went and did stuff because the farm ranch couldn't support us because someone told us you needed 10,000 acres of grass. Well, no, maybe we needed 3,500 that we took care of. So, whole mindset, the whole change of that is crazy.
Do they get that from reading books or going on farm tours? How do they get that change?
I would like, my best idea of that is like job switching, or like one farmer from Michigan comes here or a whole bus from Michigan comes here and we send a whole bunch of our guys back there. Because every farmer I know except for a handful have never had the opportunities that I have to go see everything. Their backyard is 10 square miles and nothing changes in 10 square miles unless there's one guy doing something. So when you go to Michigan and you see the blueberries and then you see this and that, and you go to Texas or you go to California and see all that stuff, they can't even fathom you can do anything different than corn and beans, or the cow calf herd that you creep feed and baby the cows all year to make a living. So we just need to do some job exchange or territory exchange programs. First, they get to see from a practice change, but we got to look at right now the depression over the last 15, 20 years. Now it's really bad. When I was consulting all across the country, the first thing I'd ask on every farm ranch was, what do you love to do? Oh, no one's asked me that. What do you mean? What do I love to do? Well, you got cows. You love cows or you love farming? I love cows. And they'll start telling you everything about the cows. And I'll say, how's the enterprise in that wheat over there? Oh, we lose money every year on that. And I said, well, we're going to end that. We're going to be done with that. They're like, how? We got to do it. I'm like, you want to run more cows? You want to custom graze? You want to make more money? Let's put it to cover crops. You want to cowboy more? You want to be able to give more calf shots on the end of a rope? Yeah, I do. I'm like, well, there goes $400,000 worth of equipment. That's off your bank note. You're not farming anymore. You're doing what you want.
So do conventional farmers and ranchers go to that because that's what they know and because of perception, or is it also because they don't have the tools and the opportunities?
Well, so most of the time they need less machinery to do it, and they're going to save money. So when you go to regenerative ag, the biggest profit is in the savings. So when I jokingly say, if you've got 5,000 acres and you're irrigated in all these states right around me, a little bit west and east and stuff like that, but you're doing full tillage, you no cover crops, you don't have animal impact, you're doing all this stuff. If you've got 5,000 acres, I can save you $1 million the first year. And they'll be like, wow, I don't understand how you do it. Well, you've got 6 new tractors. You need 2. How many grain carts do you have? 2. And you'll need 1 for the no-till planter and 1 for the no-till drill. But we always till. Well, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do it this way. And so when they see that savings, because farmers and ranchers both got out of the joy or the fashion of growing things. We'd rather grow it for a short amount of time and then go, like, when you think of fallowed ground, it's the most horrible thing. I can remember my dad and grandpa saying, well, rest that soil. No, it's like you're abusing it the entire time. You're not resting it. Weeds try to come there because weeds are God's cover crop.
So what kind of benefits did you see both in your herd and in your soils and the forage that you grew once you started changing your practices?
So everything became healthier. So our product, our little meat company, became way healthier, full of way more nutrients. Iron levels alone went way up. Beef is supposed to be chock full of iron. Most beef isn't anymore. And so just the overall health. So the cow herd, oh my gosh, we were running in the spring, in the fall. Every time in the summer, we'd crowd them in a corner, set up some panels, we'd spray them for flies. Well, every time we're doing that, then they'd go out and they'd shed that off, and it was killing the life in the soil. And so just the healthiness of the soil and everything that benefits from us, i.e. everything. I mean, we're, like my granddaughter, she eats out of the cover crop fields, like peas and everything. How many fields would you let your kids eat out of in agriculture now? You wouldn't. What's it been sprayed with? What's it modified with? We don't know. So it's just that overall health. Back to soil health makes all of society healthy too. I mean, it cures everything because everyone's touching the soil again.
So producers don't really like the word sustainable. It's kind of a word that people just throw around these days because they think it's going to get traction. Is soil health sustainable, or I don't know, some people also don't like that word because it just means we're staying stagnant.
Right.
Can soil health cure a lot of the problems that we put ourselves in?
All of them. So, yes, we don't want to remain sustainable, because if this is the level we want to sustain, we're screwed. We're done. It's like, wow, this is like we didn't even try. We really tried hard to get it here, and now we're not trying hard to make it better. Regenerative isn't even a great name. Practice enhancements is what I like to talk a lot about, because people think you're a tree hugger or a hipster or some crazy left wing, no wing, whatever, when you talk about all this stuff. But when you go in and say, I think we changed that practice, that's what they're used to hearing from the government, from their farm managers, from educators, is practice changes. And so they're more apt, I think, to jump on that. And I beat the regenerative drum hard. And if they like what you're doing, they love that. And if they don't understand it, they use it against you.
So you talked a little bit about there's a lot of opportunities for farmers and ranchers. How do they reach out? Because I kind of think of them as sometimes just living in their own little world. You talked about their 10 by 10 square that they live in. So how do they start finding those opportunities?
Opportunity-wise now, I mean, stop doing what's not working. Really evaluate, why am I doing it this way? I had a guy that talked to me the other day. He said, I average $10,000 a bull, and I buy a dozen bulls a year. I'm like, that sounds great. I said, I'm an old registered cattle guy. I said, sounds like somebody's making a lot of money. He should be really happy. I bet you get a nice cap or something once a year. I said, why don't you just buy those new genetics every so often and raise your own bulls? Your cows are acclimated to your ranch. You know the best cows you have. You know the ones they always calve early. You always keep their heifers. Keep their bulls. And then every 3 or 4 years, we get some fresh genetics. I don't know what he's going to say. I've always bought from him. I said, well, he's probably going to say, well, I can't believe you didn't figure that out earlier. But you're not going to tell people to do things different when your sole income is off of their inability to be creative or to really see the big picture. I had a guy standing there looking at cover crops, and he's like, I just don't know I've never heard about this. I go to the co-op, I get my seed at the co-op. And I'm like, I said, you drinking, man? And he's like, oh yeah. I said, so you like Crown? And he's like, yeah. And I said, so when you go buy a new bottle of Crown, take it up to the counter, do they tell you about AA, or do they sell you the bottle of Crown? Yeah, they're only going to sell you what they have. He's like, okay. They're not going to help my problem. They're going to sell me something. So, bad metaphor. My wife said I can't use that anymore. Why not? So we've got a really good NRCS and FSA deal in Sword County. Like one of the best I've ever worked with. They are proactive. They want to learn. A lot of those guys actually have been pulled out of there to go in higher positions. So now, because they're doing so well. But a good friend of mine got us started back, like that cover crop trial. I would have never got back into a government program to do anything. But he's like, no, we want We want you to be able to talk to them. And quickly after that first year, with what they were recommending versus what we were doing on our own, they saw that they needed to just let us do it. So we've had a great relationship with them, and I'm not a program for our own operation, but I am totally that way if it's going to help people get started. Not mandated, not cost share, full funding. Forget the crop insurance program and give everybody cover crop seed, because you'd mitigate drought. All the insurance they would need would be for wind and hail.
Was there ever a point where you wanted to go back to conventional farming?
Never have I wanted to go back. If you're doing it right, if you're seeing any results, you just get more excited. Every year's more. It's like, what can we do that's even crazier this year than last year? Because every mistake, like this looks like a train wreck, but this will build more soil and hold more water than if we'd had it in corn. And we'll get some veggies out for the neighbors.
If somebody came to you with what seemed like a crazy idea, how would you approach it?
Well, they can't bring crazy enough ideas fast enough to us. I want people to be doing a lot of different things out here, that not allowing them, but just do what you want. Like, let's figure out, can we make some money? Can you make some money and not like break your back doing it? Because people have talked to me like, I'm going to do 10 acres of vegetables. And like, I would give you a half acre and you will hate me at a half acre. Because it is, and water's our limiting factor. If we could have water every place, which hopefully someday we will, then we can have community gardens and stuff like that. Because we're close enough to Lincoln, they would come here. I mean, I think there's people in every town around that would do that. So our upright silo that stands as a monument to a lot of things wrong in agriculture would love to do aquaponics in levels, raise the fish down below, have vegetables on this level, edible flowers on this level. But to get the water up that high, it's a $70,000 pump.
Oof.
So, yeah. So, roadblock there.
Slight.
But somebody out there knows how to do that really cost effective that just hasn't had the chance to do it. So, and every old building, every old structure can be repurposed to do something that's more fitting to community and the family and stuff.
How easy is it to break into new markets? If you plant some cover crop that you've never planted before, how easy is it to market that cover crop to somebody else? Or
it's getting easier, but it was a huge hurdle because a lot of people we've done like so many different things, and then there was a market for them, where there's markets that didn't materialize when we got it there. So with our cows, everything's just a cow feed deal, and then if we can get veggies or we can get hay or anything else that we can market, but we're still building the soil, it's a win for us. But if you're a grain operation, I was talking about my good friend Nate Belcher's got the cover crop exchange also. He works with growers all over different states to grow cover crops that he can sell just in those areas, because so many cover crops are not acclimated for those areas. So he does a lot of that, and there's a lot of other people doing that now, of those contract growers. And even if you don't have specialty markets, the cost savings that you're doing is going to make a commercial or a commodity operation profitable.
so speaking about money and stuff, the bottom line is probably one of the biggest roadblocks after kind of the mental state. So how does somebody, if they're kind of doing it on their own, they don't have you, how do they figure out if it pencils out or not?
Like the best tool now is YouTube videos. There is so much out there. It is so cool. Like, I'll flip them on when I'm not doing anything, and it's just like, there's young guns. Like, I've been following Jason Mock in Indiana that's doing relay cropping, and we want to try some of that here. But there's so many people that are, we no longer have to wait for a university or an extension, or the companies that are selling other stuff aren't going to help on that. But we still have so much independence and the liberty to learn from other people. We are our only roadblock. the information is Google regenerative ag and see what pops up. Like the other night, like 177,000 different things when I did that. All the information's out there. Unless they shut all that off, then we have to go back to seeing what our neighbor does and working with our neighbor. So it's win-win either way.
That's true.
It's all the information's out there.
Is there anything that you would consider risky, or is it all just kind of fun and let's just see what we can do?
Agriculture is risky in the state of practices where everybody's at. This is less risky. So there's always some risk. When you get back to a diversified operation where you have livestock, and even better so with multiple species, and if better yet, if you can have a market developed for that meat product or eggs or whatever, everything is not a failure when it doesn't work right. It's an opportunity. So, you know, when you have livestock, you can graze a lot. And so if you don't have a lot into it and you don't have a huge note at the bank and you don't have all this equipment, well, you know, most times you're more resilient than a lot of people are. And maybe you could even get other people to bring, you know, custom stuff. There's just more opportunity. There's no program.
So what's your one piece of huge advice? What's the thing that you say over and over and over again?
We're not making mistakes fast enough. I say that all the time.
Okay.
So.
Why do you say that?
Because if you're not changing, you're probably not making any mistakes, and you're not. And I'm trying to get through the potential side that you'll uncover a lot of cool things. Farming changes every 20 minutes. For some people, it hasn't changed since the 70s. But in actuality or reality, farming changes every 20 minutes. My dad always said, if you're off the farm for 20 minutes, you're a has-been. You know nothing about the farm. And my dad was super smart, like educating like people on, and that there's something to that. Because the second you get away from it, like people that'd be great standing here talking about agriculture, go to DC. Well, 3 days in DC, you lose all common sense. I've been there 20 times in my life and used to lobby there. You've got to be here. This is where the action is.
What would you tell somebody who tries regen ag for 1 or 2 years and then thinks, oh man, I just can't do it, wants to go back? What would you tell them?
Make sure to, before they get to that, make sure they talk to the people and not ask what has worked for the people, ask them what has not worked for them. Because you'll learn more in what hasn't worked than all the success stories that everybody has. So, people have gotten, you know, a bad taste in their mouth over regenerative stuff because they didn't do their due diligence, or they didn't talk to the right people, or there wasn't enough people to talk to, and now they're every place. Like I said, the resources are every place to talk to. So,
awesome. Is there any last words that you'd like to add?
well, I would just say your generation, the age that you guys are, you should be leading. We, in a lot of ways, guys my age should be put out to pasture already, and I'm a total firm believer in that. First generation farmers, first generation ag people in general will know more and have less mistakes in the change than people that are steeped in agriculture, like I was. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes because I always thought we had to do it this way. The future's in the youth more now than ever, because the youth wants to work and they're smart and they've done other things off of the farm or ranch. And until you get off the farm or ranch, you're always going to be the kid. You're always going to be junior on that farm or ranch. I'm Del Fike, and I approve this message.